A 3-year-old girl asked her father one question. 40 years later, it had bankrupted two of the most powerful companies in American history. Not competition, not market forces. One sentence. And the weapon that killed them both? It was sitting in a Kodak lab the entire time, invented, patented, and buried on purpose. Santa Fe, 1944. Edwin Land is on vacation with his family. He takes a photograph of his daughter, Jennifer. She waits. She looks at the camera. She looks at her father, and then she asks it. The question that would reshape the world. Why can't I see the picture now? Most fathers would say that's just how cameras work. Edwin Land was not most fathers. He walked around the town for an hour. By the time he got back, he had solved the problem in his head, not the engineering, the entire system. Chemistry, optics, mechanics, all of it. 4 years later, the Polaroid Land camera Model 95 hit the market, 60 seconds from shutter click to finished photograph. It was magic. It was alchemy. It was the beginning of an empire. And for 20 years, that empire had a partner, a silent giant in Rochester, New York, the most dominant name in photography, a company called Kodak. The alliance would not last. What happened next was not business. It was war. This alliance was the strangest marriage in American business. Kodak was the titan. Founded in 1888 by George Eastman, it put a camera in the hands of every ordinary family. By the 1950s, Kodak owned film. It owned processing. It owned the very chemistry that captured light. Polaroid was the insurgent. Cameras that developed their own pictures. No darkroom, no lab, no waiting. But Polaroid could not make film without Kodak. Kodak supplied the negative sheets, the chemical reagents, the raw materials that made instant photography possible. For 2 decades, Kodak fed the machine that built Polaroid's empire. Why would a giant help a competitor? Because Polaroid wasn't a threat. Instant photography was a niche, a toy, a novelty. Kodak collected its margin and focused on what mattered, its billion-dollar traditional film empire. It was a predator feeding its own prey, a partnership that was really a lie. And in April of 1969, Kodak showed Polaroid exactly what it really was. Here's the part of the story most people forget. While Kodak and Polaroid were business partners, Edwin Land was running a second life. He was one of the most important intelligence assets in the Cold War. In 1944, Land wrote a memo to the CIA director. That memo created the U-2 spy plane program. Polaroid designed the optics. Kodak processed the film. The results changed intelligence gathering forever. When the U-2 was shot down over Soviet territory in 1960, Land pushed for the next thing: satellites. The Corona program, cameras orbiting Earth, photographing Soviet missile sites, ejecting film capsules back through the atmosphere to be caught mid-air by military aircraft. Kodak processed that film in a secret facility codenamed Bridgehead. They were essential, indispensable. But Land did something Kodak never forgave. He pushed for a different company to build the Corona cameras, a smaller, more agile firm called iTech. Kodak was cut out of the camera contract. They watched a competitor take the most prestigious intelligence project in American history. This was not public knowledge. This was the deepest classified domain of the Cold War. But inside Kodak's executive offices, it burned. Edwin Land had humiliated them in the shadows, and in the world of corporate power, humiliation is a debt that must be repaid. The weapon Kodak chose was not a satellite. It was instant photography. April 1969. Kodak's executives deliver the message in person. They are terminating their 20-year manufacturing agreement with Polaroid. Effective immediately, they raise film prices, 10% in the United States, 50% internationally. Then they deliver the second blow. Kodak announces they are developing their own instant photography system. They will make film for Polaroid cameras, then they will make their own cameras. They will enter every part of Polaroid's business and dismantle it from the inside. It was not a competitive move. It was a declaration of war. Edwin Land had built Polaroid from nothing. He had invented an entirely new way of capturing memory. He had trusted Kodak with the raw materials that made his invention possible for 20 years. And now, the company he trusted was weaponizing everything they knew about his technology. Every formula, every process, every weakness. Kodak had spent 2 decades studying Polaroid's chemistry. They knew the film structure. They knew the development process. They knew exactly where Polaroid was vulnerable. This was not innovation. This was an inside job. Land had one thing, Kodak did not. Something he had been building for years, in secret, long before the betrayal, a fortress. Edwin Land believed in patents the way generals believe in walls. From Polaroid's founding, he had filed relentlessly, not just on products, on processes, on chemistry, on the specific arrangement of molecules inside a sheet of film. By the 1970s, Polaroid held over 500 patents on instant photography. Every layer of the film, every chemical reaction, every mechanical function, all of it. Patented, documented, defended. In 1972, Land unveiled his masterpiece, the Polaroid SX70, a folding single-lens reflex camera. Press a button, a photograph ejects, no peeling, no waste, no timer. Just a white square that develops before your eyes. The SX70 was not just a camera. It was a miracle of engineering. Hundreds of precision components, a motorized ejection system, a film pack containing a battery so thin it was nearly invisible. Land had spent $500 million developing it. He presented it personally, on stage, like Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs existed. The world had never seen anything like it. And behind the spectacle was something far more important. Every component of the SX70 was covered by patents. The film chemistry, the developing process, the optical path, the folding mechanism. Land had not just built a camera. He had built a legal fortress so comprehensive that no competitor could enter the instant photography market without getting sued. Kodak looked at those walls, and they decided to go through them anyway. After 7 years of secret development and hundreds of millions in research, Kodak launches the EK series instant cameras, the PR10 instant film. They are good. Some reviewers say they are better than Polaroids. The image quality is sharp. The price is competitive. The Kodak brand means trust. Kodak floods retailers. They leverage their distribution network. They pour money into marketing. Within months, they are selling millions of units. Consumers love it. Competition, choice. 2 giants fighting for their dollars. But inside Polaroid headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Edwin Land is not impressed. He is not scared. He is furious. Within days of Kodak's launch, Polaroid's legal team files a lawsuit, 12 patents, 12 distinct infringements. The complaint is massive, detailed, exhaustively documented. This is not a negotiation. This is not a warning shot. This is total war. Kodak responds the way giants always respond. They are bigger. They have more lawyers, more money, more political influence. They spent years designing around Polaroid's patents. They are confident they have found a legal path through the fortress. They are wrong. They have walked straight into the most heavily defended territory in the history of intellectual property, and Edwin Land is not going to stop until he destroys them. But the Warland just started would grind on for 9 years, and somewhere in Kodak's own files were memos that would prove they knew exactly what they'd done. 9 years. That's how long it lasted. 9 years of discovery motions, depositions, expert witnesses explaining film chemistry to judges. Kodak's legal bills alone ran into the hundreds of millions, but it could not stop. And it admitted defeat. Keep fighting, and it kept selling. And it did keep selling. While the case crawled through the courts, Kodak put 16.5 million instant cameras into American homes, each one a growing liability, each one a customer who believed Kodak would always be there with film. Polaroid's strategy was methodical, exhaustive. It expanded its claims. It forced Kodak to hand over internal documents, and those documents were devastating. Inside Kodak's own labs, engineers had written memos acknowledging how close their instant film was to Polaroid's patented chemistry. Memos admitting the alternative approaches had failed. Kodak knew exactly what it was doing. The trial began in 1985. It lasted months. Film layers, chemical reactions, testimony from the scientists who built both systems, and one question hung over the courtroom. Had Kodak innovated, or had it simply taken what Land built and called it its own? The judge was about to answer. October 1985, Judge Ryazobel delivers the ruling. The courtroom is silent. The judgment is brutal. Kodak has infringed 7 of Polaroid's 12 asserted patents on the core chemistry, on the image-forming layers, on the developing process, on the specific arrangement of chemicals that made Kodak's instant film work. The court does not find that Kodak copied Polaroid exactly. The court finds that Kodak tried to design around Polaroid's patents, but their efforts failed. The fundamental approaches were too similar. The alternatives did not work. Kodak had walked every legal path available, and every single one led straight into Polaroid's intellectual property. The verdict is a public execution. 16 years after Kodak declared war, 9 years after the lawsuit was filed, the largest photography company in the world has been found guilty of building its instant camera business on stolen ground. Kodak appeals. Of course they appeal. They are a giant. Giants do not fall from one blow, but the blow that matters is coming. And it is not about money. It is about the thing that makes cameras worth owning at all. January 1986, the injunction. A single court order. Kodak must stop manufacturing instant cameras and instant film. Immediately. Not in 6 months, not a phase out, now. The factories shut down. The production lines go dark. The film stops shipping. 16.5 million Kodak instant cameras. In drawers, on shelves, in the hands of families who trusted the yellow and red box, paperweights, all of them. Kodak has no choice. They launch a buyback program. Customers can return their cameras for a refund or trade them for Kodak's traditional cameras. The cost runs into the hundreds of millions. The brand damage is incalculable. Kodak has just told 16 million customers that the ecosystem they bought into no longer exists, and the money is still not settled. The damages trial drags on for 5 more years. In 1991, the final number lands $925 million with interest. The largest patent infringement settlement in history, adjusted for inflation, over $2 billion today. It was the kill shot. But here's what no one in that courtroom understood. The war they just finished fighting was already obsolete, because in a Kodak laboratory years earlier, An engineer had invented something that would destroy both of them. 1 year before Kodak launched its instant cameras, 1 year before the lawsuit that would cost them nearly $1 billion, 1 year before they went to war to capture a share of the instant photography market. An engineer named Steve Sasson worked in a Kodak lab in Rochester. He was young, he was curious, and he built something that would change the world. The first digital camera, it was the size of a toaster. It captured images at 1/100th of a megapixel. It stored them on a cassette tape. It took 23 seconds to record a single photograph. It was crude. It was primitive. It was the future. Sasson took it to Kodak's leadership. He showed them what he had built. Their response? That's cute. Don't tell anyone about it. Kodak patented the digital camera. Then they buried it. They were the film company. Film was a $15 billion business. Why would they invent the thing that killed film? This is the part of the story that makes it almost too perfect to be true. Kodak spent 15 years and $1 billion fighting to win a share of instant film, while sitting on the patent for the technology that would make film irrelevant. Polaroid spent the same years winning a legal victory that would mean nothing. Two empires, fighting over territory that was about to be wiped off the map. Digital photography did not arrive all at once. It arrived the way disruptive technologies always arrive. Slowly, then all at once. The 1990s. Digital sensors improve, resolution climbs, storage gets cheaper. Every year, digital cameras get better, and analog film looks less essential. Polaroid won the war. They had a monopoly on instant photography, a monopoly on a technology the world was about to stop needing. In 2001, Polaroid filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the company that Edwin Land built from a child's question, the company that defeated the most powerful name in photography, bankrupt. Not because it lost a fight, because the fight it won was for control of a dying kingdom. Kodak lasted longer, but not much. They saw digital coming. They had invented it. They had the patents, the engineers, the brand, everything they needed to lead the digital revolution. They could not let go of film, the billion-dollar processing business, the factories, the chemistry, the distribution network. It was too big, too profitable, too much of what made Kodak Kodak. In 2012, Kodak filed for Chapter 11. The inventor of the digital camera was destroyed by the technology it invented and suppressed. The patent warrior won its war and lost the world. Two titans, two bankruptcies, one shared grave. The lesson is not that patents matter. The lesson is not that innovation wins. The lesson is that winning the last war guarantees you lose the next one. Kodak fought Polaroid with everything it had because Polaroid was the threat it could see, a competitor in instant film, a rival it understood, a war with rules it recognized. While it was fighting that war, digital photography ate its future. Kodak did not fail because it lacked vision. It failed because it was too busy defending what it had. Polaroid did not fail because it lost. Polaroid failed because it won. Victory made it complacent. Monopoly made it slow. It defended its patents so perfectly that it forgot to defend its relevance. This is not a story about photography. It is a story about empires. Every empire dies the same way. It identifies a threat. It builds walls against that threat. It wins. And then it realizes, too late, that the threat it should have been watching was something it never saw coming. Something that looked like a toy. Something that looked too small to matter. The digital camera looked like a toy. The internet looked like a toy. Artificial intelligence looked like a toy. The only real question is, which empire are you going to be? The one that sees the future and suppresses it, or the one that becomes it? And if you want more insane stories about business and history, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss our next video. Thanks for watching.